fair amount to get into from today's game, as the Giants actually had a split squad day today. Half the team hanging back at Scottsdale to take on the San Diego Padres, while the other half went over to Mesa to play the Chicago Cubs. But before getting into either of the games, a bit of roster housekeeping, as both of the Carsons that were remaining in camp, Carson Ragsdale and Carson Seymour, were optioned. The Giants obviously entered camp with 3 Carsons, the last one being Wisenhunt. Now they are all out of Major League camp. Seymour and Ragsdale weren't necessarily expected to make the opening day roster, but they did finish the season with AAA Sacramento, and Bob Melvin did say that he believes that he'll see them in the majors at some point, whether that's this season, next season. You never really know, especially given some of the depth that the Giants already have as far as Major League level. As far as the game here in Scottsdale, beginning with Jordan Hicks, through 2 2/3 innings, allowed 3 runs, had the 1 strikeout. Hicks' outing does need a bit of contextualizing, as he threw 2 scoreless innings to start his outing, didn't record a single out in the 3rd inning, when we'll detail that more in a second, and then recorded 2 outs in the top of the 4th inning after re-entering, and finished his outing otherwise pretty strong. Threw 62 pitches, typically sat in the 95 to 97 mile per hour range with his fastballs. It touched 99 and even 100 a couple times, which that gets into the 3rd inning as well. And his splitter was a bit up compared to where it was last year. Last year was, I want to say, 84, 83 miles per hour, and today it was in the 88, 89 mile per hour range. And last season he threw 373 splitters, only 8 of which registered at least 88 miles per hour. But going into the 3rd inning, the inning started inauspiciously enough. He allowed a pair of singles, neither of which were hit really hard, to the first 2 batters in the Padres order. Then Connor Joe comes to the plate, and Hicks unfurls a 100 mile per hour fastball, and it was kind of out of nowhere, because for the majority of the game he was sitting 95, 96, 97, maybe with 98 sprinkled in. And when he threw that fastball up and in, I looked over at the radar at the stadium scoreboard, and I said, "Oh my, that wasn't expected." It just kind of came out of nowhere. It's not like he was touching 99 to begin his outing, and that in turn resulted in pitching coach JP Martinez coming out to the mound, kind of trying to calm him down. And Hicks did admit that after giving up those 2 singles in particular, there was a bit of frustration. But I believe if I remember the sequencing right, he allows the double to Joe, that scores a run, throws a wild pitch on the very next pitch, which clocked in, I believe from my notes, at 99. And then he allows a double to Yuli Gurriel. I think that registers the 3rd run. Yeah, that was the 3rd run of that outing. And then I think he walks another batter, and then he gets pulled from that inning and then re-enters in the 4th and finishes strong. So the results weren't exactly the best in the world, but he was sitting healthy with his velocity, both with his sinker, his 4-seam, and the aforementioned splitter. He threw 62 pitches today and said that he could have gone more if this was a regular season game. And he did say that he also feels a lot stronger right now compared to where he was last season at this exact same time, which when it comes to spring, when it comes to games that don't necessarily matter, that's more so what you want to hear. That's more so what you're concerned about. Over in Mesa, Landon Roupp had a pretty rough outing considering how well he had been pitching to start the spring. Over his first 3 outings, he was up to 8 1/3 scoreless innings with, I believe, 11 strikeouts to 1 walk. And today against the Cubs, he allows 5 earned runs over 3 2/3 innings, over 7 hits. His ERA over spring is still, even with as bad as that outing was, it's still at a very modest 3.75 with 14 strikeouts to 1 walk. But it does dent some of his odds as far as making the opening day roster, as far as that 5th spot in the rotation. Doesn't completely eradicate him by any means, but it definitely does not help as far as his stock, especially as I mentioned, just given how well that he pitched to begin the spring. A bit of a scary incident in the 1st inning, in the top of the 1st inning of that game, as Wade Meckler, and I'll put the video up here, the Cubs' Ian Happ hits a ball in the left center field gap. Meckler tries tracking it down, dives full extension, and ends up landing pretty hard on, he essentially, for lack of a better term, he essentially face plants, and 1 batter into Roupp's outing, and has to be removed from the game. The Giants ended up telling us that he had to be removed with a mild neck strain. I believe that's what it was, and he's being tested for concussion symptoms. We've yet to hear anything further than that. And the final note from both of today's games is that the Giants over out in Mesa had a 5-run comeback against the Cubs. They went into the top of the 9th inning trailing 6-3, and they end up scoring 5 runs, all of which came from minor leaguers. None of the major leaguers were in the lineup, I believe. The games don't count. The records don't count, but a win is a win nonetheless.